Hello everyone. So this current video will help you understand how can you convert an input like in this particular input where we have full names, address, contract time and the position and the employee ID, and in the output sheet the first name and last name, middle name are divided, as well the street, city and country are divided, and the designation is also placed in a separate, like this is the designation. And the output sheet, in the output sheet we need to add all these details. Okay, simple. The use case is simple. Fetch each and every row. Okay, you can take this as a project to work on for each data row and string split activities. So how can we do that? First we need to take the name and divide it into three parts: first name, last name and the middle name. And even in the address we need to divide it into three parts. First one will be the street, city and the country. So if you see in the example that's provided, each and every item is divided into multiple or with multiple spaces. So that's what we need to target. So here we'll see how we can do that. So let's go into the code. I'm starting with a new project. Start with a new process, string split project. And let's add in the code. Okay, select the folder and let's create. So when we are working with such kind of simple projects, we can go ahead and use simple process flow rather than using RE framework for the initial learning. But later if you want to learn how to convert this particular project into RE framework, you can go ahead and check that videos as well. And so I started new. There is no code in this, and let's add a sequence to start. And in this sequence we'll first read the Excel. So there are two types of Excel here: read with Excel workbook and read with Excel application scope. Since we are not covering Excel activities, we'll go with workbook, which is a single activity. So in this particular workbook, what we could do is, in this, let's add that file into the code and let's move this. Don't save. Let's move this into the code. Now we have the file directly in the code. What we could go ahead and do, let's go and map it. And we are not working with only one or only A1 and A2. So to work with complete sheet, we need to remove all the range. So we'll get all the data that's available in this complete range. Let's check with the properties. And in this Excel range, let's create an output data table. The shortcut for this is press Ctrl K and then data table dt underscore input. Now when we are seeing this as an input, we'll have all the data that's in sheet number 1 or master sheet. So to make sure that we are reading data from master sheet, what we need to do is we need to copy the sheet name. Copy the sheet name and add it here. So instead of sheet 1, it will be master sheet. So this is the dt of input. Okay, let's go ahead and continue with the next steps. So now when we read this particular input, what we get, we'll get rows of data. So let's go ahead and keep a for each. And in this there is two types of for each. There are two types of for each and for each row. Since we are using data table, we will go with for each row. And what do we need to place here? We need to place the data table that we have generated in the top. Input data table. Now what we will get in this row, this is the basic, or this is one row which we are getting from this complete table when we are executing this code. Now when we are executing this, we will get first row, then we will get the second row, then we will get the third row. Now how can we get? Let's quickly see what are the outputs that we are getting. Keep a log, and in this log we'll maintain this as info. And so how to get the first item or this employee ID? See, when we are using rows and columns, there is a concept called indexes. So for this complete data table, this is at the 0th index, so this is at the 0th position, and this is at the first position, this is at the second position. In the same way, we'll have A as the 0th position in a row, B column as the first position in a row. Now if I want to get employee ID for the first row, since I am getting one row at a time, all I need to do is row of 0 dot toString. So what is 0 here? This is the index. What if I don't want to give the index? Can I give this heading? Yes, I can also go ahead and do that. I can go ahead and what I'll do, I will copy and paste it twice, and instead of row I will write full name. Instead of 0, here we'll take index 1, but other than using index 1, we can also use full name. So let's try to use this. The only problem that we'll have when we are using workbook is Excel cannot be open. We need to close the Excel. So let's run this file. I'm not explaining about debug here. We can see all the debug properties in the next video. And if you see here, we are getting the ID and the name, complete name we are getting. So what is our exact requirement? We need to divide this name into 3 different variables. But if you see here, every word is divided by a space. So how can we divide the complete full name into different words? This is where we will use split. If you don't have an activity called split, what I suggest you to do is go ahead and use assign statement, and let's assign multiple things here. So to help us, I can use multiple assign. So when we are using single assign statement, only one value can be assigned, but when we are using multiple assign statements, we can add multiple values. Now this is the value that we are getting, so we'll add this value here, and we will change this to, again, to create a variable, use Ctrl K as a shortcut, str underscore full name. So this is the full name. Now how can we convert this into 3 different words? Simple. Let's split this like this. So we'll go ahead and give str full name dot split, and here we need to provide on which basis it should split. So we'll split it with space, and at the end we need to give C to make sure this is a character. So split works with character, and here we will press Ctrl K again and array of names. So I am using array because the output of this particular item will be an array. So if you don't know what is an array, don't worry, just go ahead and type in the value. We'll explain about array details in next videos or further videos. So what exactly are we doing here? See, there is an error here stating that an assign statement of system of string, see, there is a square brackets. Square brackets indicates that we need to assign an array here. So instead of array names, what we could do here is change this to array of string. Hit on OK. Now we will not have any error. In the same way, we also need to have address values. But before doing that, let's go ahead and see what is the output that we are getting. But here is a catch. Now when we are converting this into an array, this is a collection. So array is also a collection and rows are also collection. Rows contains values in a row or in each and every column. An array contains all the string names with which it is divided. For example, let's take a notepad. Let's give my name UiPath RPA by Vajrang. Now when I use split on this, how this will be divided? This will be divided like this: UiPath RPA by Vajrang. So in the same way, the name also will be divided. So to get one item at a time, this is what we need to do. We need to use, again we need to iterate, or we understood that with the initial data that we have, we require 3 words, and the 3 words are divided by either a comma with the first name or with the space. So we have the details here. Let's go ahead and print those values. So how to print the first, in the full name, how to print the first name? Let's see an ascend statement. Again, let's add a log statement here. Once we add the log message, we'll keep it to info, which is information, and here we know that it's every value is an array of names. To get the first value, we need to give the index of 0. Okay, dot toString. To get the second value, we need to use index of 1. Since all the indexes start with 0, we are using this, and here we are using index of 2. So we are able to divide the values. Now we will see the output, then we will continue further. Let's pin this and let's clear all the values, and let's keep a breakpoint. So how to keep a breakpoint? Just right click on every message here and hit on toggle breakpoint. Now when you click on toggle breakpoint, hit on debug file. Now we will get one row at a time, and for every row, if you see here, the array of rows, the value is null according to the value that's given here. But we just need to see how can we get all the values. If you see here, this is the row of 0, step into where we are getting the ID. But since we are dividing this value of full name into 3 different strings, we will go and hit on continue. Now let's see, in the array of names, if you see here, this is how it is divided, as I mentioned in the notepad. Okay, so this is the value that we have, and if you see here, or if we extend this or expand this, in the raw view we can see at 0th index we have James, 1 index Madison, and 2 it's Cameron. So this is how we will get, and let's hit on step into. Again step into. Now if you see here, the first value is printed as James, second value is printed as Madison, the third value will be printed as Cameron. So now we are able to divide each and every value into 3 different, or each and every name will be divided into 3 different words. Let's go back and see the input file that we need to use and the output file that we need to create. So what exactly do we have here? We have ID, first name, middle name, last name, street, road, city, country, designation, and end date. Now how can we get all these values? So the first name, middle name, and last name is what we have already extracted. Now all we need to do is divide the street, city, and country. Now if you see here in the address, we cannot use space for this because here everything is divided by space and each and every row has only 3 words. But if you see here, this has more than 3 words and we will not be able to understand what is the street and what is the road. But here we can observe one thing, that each and every identification like street, road, city and country are divided with comma. So to exactly get the values, instead of space we will use comma as a delimiter. So let's go ahead and check the values. Let me compress this, or okay, what we could do here we are getting names, and here let's go ahead and add few values. If I add here Control K, str first name, let's add one more str last name, and let's add one more thing, Control K str, we can add it as middle name. Now since we know that the 0th index is the first name, what we could do is in array of names we can give it as 0. So this is the first name now, and here we will add the second value which is the last one, and if we want the middle name, it will be 1. Okay, so this is as simple as creating all 3 different variables, and if you see in the variables panel, each and every value will be in different variables. Let's do the same thing, or let's copy the same thing. What we could do is, see, for each and every row we need to do this. In the same way, for each and every full name and for each and every address we need to do the same applications or same activities. So what I will do is, I'll create one more assign multiple. So here what I will do, Control K str full address. Now let's copy the values from here, but here we have the name as address. Let's copy the address and let's paste it here. Now we will have address in this particular destination. Now the full address will be assigned to the row value in which it is executing. If it is executing for the first time, I mean in the first loop, it will execute the 4 Bells Road. Second loop, it will execute the 88 Church Road. In the same way, it will execute to all the rows. Let's go ahead and add a value str. So what we need, let's go back and check the details that we need. We need street, city and country. Let's create street str street, but we forgot to do one thing. We need to split the values. So let's create a split value first, arr underscore address values. Now we already have full address. Let's open this in big, dot split, the same activities that we are going to use, and we are going to use comma C instead of space. If you remember, we used space before because there is a delimiter of space where we can get all the values, but here we cannot get all the values using space, so we are using comma as the value. And if you see here, it's throwing an error. Again, we need to change the address values to system string array. Now we have all the values in an array. Again, we need to assign the values. First one, street, city and country. Let's add str street and let's add one more thing, str city and str country. So what I'm telling you now is the coding standard. Str, we are suffixing each and every value with str since it will represent that street is a string. Now if you go back, what is street here? The first value is street, the second value is city, the third value is the country. So what we could do, array, same execution, array of 0 dot toString will give us street, and here we need to replace this with 1, and here we need to replace this with 2. Now each and every value here is added or appended into the variables. Why do we have error here? Because it's not declared. Let's press Ctrl K and add the values, Ctrl X, Ctrl K, V. Now here multiple s sign, this is used for address, and here we are using this for full name. Okay, let's minimize this. So let's quickly see what did we do. Let's also, maybe we can remove these logs, but for now let's keep it as is. Let's see what we have done till now. We created for each row, and in for each row we are dividing the values or splitting the values so that we will get one item, each item differently, and we can add those values here in this particular output sheet. Now how can we add all the values here? See, there are multiple ways how you do it, but the easiest way is to create a data table and add the data table here, or we can also write using index or write cell index. So for this example, I will create a data table so that it will help you to understand how to create a data table. Let's go ahead and create a data table. Let's create build data table. So do we need to create build data table every time? Yes, if we are writing each and every row, and no, if we don't want to write each and every row and we want to write all the table at once, then we need to keep it outside. But since we are using create row activity, or we will be using create row activity, we need to create a data table each and every time. Again, this is for the basic learning. Once you go in depth, then you will be able to understand how exactly you can convert this and write all the data table at once. So if you see here, we have columns, 2 columns. Let's add multiple columns here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. I would like to add 9 different columns. Let's go and add 9 different columns. 1 2, let's give the value as middle name, and it should not be null, so removing the null value here. Last name, removing null. And what else do we have? We have street, city, country, street, city, country. The final 2 columns are designation and end date. Let's add them even now. Designation and end date. Let's also change these for consistency. Let's add ID here and the first name. Let's go with hello. And if you see here, all we need to add is, first we need to add ID, first name, middle name, last name, street, city, country, designation, and end date here. Since we build the data, now we need to have it as a variable. Control K, dt underscore final table. So this is the final table that we are creating. Now since we have created a data table, let's also add a row to it. Add row activity, we will have add row activity, add data row. It takes, so add data row activity takes multiple inputs. The first input is control K, or since we already have the data table, dt is the table where we need to write the row or append the row. And if I want to use array of items, we can use that. And if I have created a data row, then we can use data row activity here or data row property here. But since we have an array of items, or since we have separate strings, I would like to create an array and I would like to push. First one is the ID, and if you see here, we already have the ID, employee ID from the row. I need not change or convert this particular value. So I can use this particular value, row of employee ID dot toString. Make sure that all the columns are matching with the table columns, or whatever values that you have here, the count should be matching with the columns that we have. And here we need to have first name, last name, middle name, first name, middle name, last name, str. Let's go ahead and give str. Okay, we have str first name, comma, str. Okay, since we are not getting the values, let's search for them. Str middle name, comma, str last name. So all the values should be separated by comma, and if you see here, there is a dot that's appearing at the end while we are using auto IntelliSense. So we should not have these values or have this dot or full stop. Let's add the other values, str last name, and then we can add str we have str street. Okay, again there is a dot, let's remove that, and comma, str city, and comma, str country. Now since we have all the values, we also need to add few more things. Street, city, country, we have designation and end date. So designation and end date should be here. So to my understanding, contract time is 40 days. So current date plus 40 days is what we need to have. Let's see the position as well. So the position is the designation, so I can directly write position here, str, or I can use row of, let's minimize this a bit. So the position value, let's go ahead and add the values here, position and dot toString. We have the position. Okay, now let's create the contract time or end date. What should be the end date here? Since we have the contract time, this is what we need to do to get the end date. Let's create an assign statement, multiple assign, so that we will have the values properly. We will have this as a contract time, str underscore contract time, and in this value we will need to have the contract time that's available in the Excel. So let's write a row. In this row we need to pass in the column name. This is the column name that we need to use. Now how can we convert this into date? So we will create one more variable called end date, which is control K end date underscore end date. So this is the value that we are going to use. And how can we write the value? Observe carefully. First we need to take the current date. Now dot, we need to add the days. Add days. But how can we add the days? We have the days here, but each and every value has days as a substring. So we need to remove this days. How can we do that? We can, now we have str full str contract time dot replace. We can use replace. So what we will replace? Space days is what we will replace. If you see here, if we replace space days, all we get is integer value. So we will remove space dot days dot toString. But here is one more detail that we are missing here. See, date, if I want to add days, it should be an integer or a number. How can we convert this into a number? A simple function in VB is cint. So whenever you want to convert a digit that's in string into a integer value, you need to use cint and you need to write it between the braces. Now when we do that, all we are doing here is, let me explain you again. Now is the current date dot add days. Will add days, but how can we say how many days are we adding? That's where we get it here. Or what we can do is, we can also take it away from here and let's create one more variable. Okay, control K integer underscore days. Okay, now when we are adding integer underscore days, this end date will not work here because this should come at the bottom, and we'll paste it here. And if you see here, it's throwing an error because replace accepts arguments. So we need to have what it should be replaced with. We need to replace it with empty string. Okay, now we don't have any error, but we will have issue with integer days because this is not a string. Let's go with int days and change this to an integer. Okay, now since we have this as an integer, let's also create a value and cut this value from here and paste it here, and cut this value from here and paste it here. And let's remove this. So first we are getting the days and then we are adding the final date, or we are trying to get the final date. Now it's easy. Int days. So for the current date, I need to add how many days do I have. So what error do I have here? See, it's of system date type and it cannot be added to a string. So to make sure that we are adding it as a string, we need to use this function dot toString, and first we need to have date slash month slash year. So how can we get these? You need to check with the date functions, but for this particular workflow, you just understand that if I want to add or if I want to convert a date into a string, I need to pass it in a format, and this is the format that I want. Now I have the complete date and date. All I need to do here is go ahead and add the value. Now what do we have from this? We have designation, we have, all we need is end date. So just add the end date, integer, or it should be date, I think. Okay, date underscore end. Okay, the date is in string date underscore end date. Let's see if it has any exception. This is the end date that we have. End date is a string, that's with the body, and let's go ahead and add this value. Okay, let's add date here. Okay, we are not having, okay, we got the date from here, and we just need to remove this. Since we have all the values, we have this error, we don't have any more errors, and all the values that we require are created into a data row, and it will be appended to this final data table. Now how can we write it to this particular sheet? As I said, there are multiple ways to do it, but we'll try to write one row at a time. For that we need to use append data row, append range is what we need to use. So earlier we have used read range workbook activity. We'll use the same read range workbook activities, but now we are going to use append range. And let's copy the output sheet and let's place it here. And the data table that we need to write is dt final data table. There is a catch here. What is the catch? I will explain you. Let's first run this flow and let's see the output. Let's save this and let's run this without debugging. I just want to make sure that it runs. Okay, input was incorrect format. James is the incorrect format. Okay, let's go to build data table and see. So this is the input incorrect data type. We'll convert it into a string, so we'll not have any errors now. Let's run this file. We ran the bot and it is successful. And if you see here in the output, we have ID, first name, middle name, last name, and all the values, including the date that we want. Okay, the other thing that I am saying here, okay, since we are creating the data table each and every time, we will not have any issue now, and you will be able to run this workflow and execute this as many times as you want. So that's a simple project where we are trying to learn all the activities ranging from split, replace, and for each. Let's have a quick overview or review for the code that we have written, and then let's close this session. Let's go to this project. Okay, now let's see the code. Quick review. First we read all the range, then we are using for each row, and we divided the full name into 4 different strings and the address into 3 different strings, and creating a data table. And now we need to create, or we need to assign the end date, or this is the end date multiple assign. Once we have the end date, all we need to do is we need to add the data rows. After adding the data row, we need to append it to a Excel. What if we run this again? We will have the duplicate data. Since we have already ran this once, for the second time when we run this, the data will be duplicated, but it will run perfectly. A small extra tip for you. In the first name, we have comma as an extra value or a comma as an extra character. Now how to remove that? Simple. Let's go with UiPath. Let's open this. So what do you think about this tutorial and how did you find this tutorial? Is it helpful to you? Do comment in below this video and don't forget to like this video and do share all my videos. You can find details about interviews, you can find details about basic trainings, and you can also get exclusive content on RE framework, how to create multiple projects on RE framework. You can get that. Go ahead and check that out. So quick tip at the end, how to remove that comma after first name. So let's add one more quick activity here. We will use str first name dot remove, and in this we will pass, okay, remove accepts a integer, but we also have replace. We can use replace. What are we going to replace? We are going to replace comma and we are going to replace it with nothing, and hit on OK. Press execute, and now let's see the final output. And if you see here, which ran recently, we will not have any comma at the end since we replaced that. Okay, that's how you create a simple project with an Excel file using for each loop. Do like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon. And if you want to subscribe to my channel and do want to fund me, there is a scrolling at the bottom of this video which you can see. You can fund me through PayPal, Google Pay or any other payment modes. And if you want to take the membership, go ahead and take the membership for the upcoming months as well. You will have lots and lots of content that I am posting exclusively for the members in this channel. Bye bye.